Good morning, Grand Rising. Welcome to Wake Up with Sonia Poulton and guests. It is Friday, the 13th of June, 2025. Or as Dougal says in our comments, Friday the 13th can be the best day of your life. It's a perspective choice. Today is your day. Grand Risings all indeed. And welcome to Wake Up. How are you all today? I hope you are exceedingly well. Exceedingly well. They have been so busy spraying out there today. It is horrific. I hope as many of you as possible can make it to Hyde Park / Speaker's Corner next week, where we protest against what they are doing in our skies. How are you today? How are you today? Oops, hold on. I've got me coming back at me. And welcome to the show that knows that life can be deep. It can be heavy, but it doesn't have to be dark. This is Wake Up, the show that seeks the light at the end of every tunnel. Thank you for being here. How are you? No reminders, notification heard. What's going on? What's going on? Weather weapons. Yes, indeed. How are you all? Did any of you receive notifications today? And have you done the bell thing, right? How are you, Cheryl? Cheryl, how are you, darling? How are you? I saw Chris is in the Outer Hebrides or something. And A New Dawn wrote, after watching Agenda, I have decided I will not bend to evil and I will not be scared. So bring it on. Thank you indeed. Of course, we had the guys with us from Agenda at the start of the week, and there is a link in the description on Monday's show to the film, and I highly recommend you watch it. Good morning, all. Let's do it, Ian. Let's expose them. Let's expose everything and everyone that needs to be exposed. How are you all? What is on Wake Up today? We will be joined by Kimberley VALLIS. She's the home educating mum and youth mentor who understands the problems of the system, and she understands it because she was part of the system, and so she's going to be able to give us a brilliant insight, which I'm very much looking forward to. We're also going to be joined by Jane Metcalf. She is fighting for justice for Robin Garbutt, the Postmaster convicted of murdering his wife. And we'll also be joined at the start by geopolitical journalist Warren Thornton, helping us to make sense of what the hell is going on. Iran, India air crash, and UK training Israel, plus MMR at Glastonbury. They're pushing. Oh, yes, they are. They're pushers. Ballymena disorder and Jay Slater, The Last Moment, Sin City tragedy. Did anybody see this? This is the most insane story about feuding YouTubers, which ended in tragedy this week. And of course, this week there is also Bilderberg, which started yesterday, going on for a few days. Dominic Cummings, MPs and child abuse cover-up, which I'm going to start with. And I'm going to end with why we need a healthy dose of disbelief. Yes, indeed, we do. We do news different around here. And I know you know why. That's right, because someone had to. How are you all? I hope you are absolutely fine and dandy and tickety-poo, you beautiful people. You beautiful people. Grand risings to you all. Maze Maz says, what a beautiful day. How are you all? I hope you're well. Zoe, how's the moving going? The moving and the packing and all that wonderful stuff. Grand risings, Teresa and Randy and Kath and Claire and Marcus and Derek and Diana and Maxine and Miss with a Hiss. No reminder from YouTube. What the hell is going on? Grand risings to you and weather weapons. Oh, I think I've already read that, Truther. How are you all? I get it, Cheryl. I get it. Right. Let me see. I want to refer, first of all, to this because I find extraordinary. This is Dominic Cummings. Dominic Cummings, of course, was Boris Johnson's chief advisor during C19 and when Boris Johnson was in at number 10. And also, Dominic Cummings played a significant part in getting Boris Johnson re-elected. And he's been talking. He was in Oxford this week giving a speech. He also gave an interview with GB News, and he has said some actually astonishing things. First of all, he's made it absolutely clear that the whole reason why they won't do an inquiry to do with grooming gangs is the reason why they are reluctant to do any inquiry that involves child abuse. And this literally what he said is one of the reasons why I made my film Paedophiles in Parliament. So if you haven't already heard it, have a listen. Let me just find it for you. And I just thought it was extraordinary, actually. Have a listen to this. This is an admission.
Mass cover-ups of the whole thing for the same reason that we've already alluded to, fear. fear of the political consequences of facing reality. What I saw in 2011, I mean, there are lots of different things. Well, normally in Whitehall, the cliche that it's a cock-up, not a conspiracy, is generally true. The one big exception, I would say, is regarding child abuse, where there are actually multiple conspiracies constantly and largely successful.
Where there are actually multiple conspiracies and largely successful. What he means is successfully covering up because they are real, they exist. And this is a huge admission. This is along with, who was it? Fortescue. It was Fortescue who said it, that there was blackmail and bribery for politicians, especially if they wanted to hide things to do with young boys. This is literally like a modern day continuation of this. And conspiracies, it is. They are conspiracies, but not theories. They're conspiracy fact. We know it's been going on, but this interview is almost certainly going to go viral. Going to go viral. You can tell it's Friday. Right? You can tell it's Friday. And what else did I want to look at before we bring in our first guest? This, of course, what's going on in Ballymena. It's significant. It's huge. Aftermath of several days of disorder in Ballymena, Northern Ireland. Online safety experts and police warn there will be consequences for anyone sharing information about homes for rioters to attack. There's a Facebook group in existence with over 5,000 followers and has been urging people to share the addresses of individuals they want to protect from violence in Ballymena and to post addresses of those they want to target, including alleged Roma gangmasters. Now, this is really significant. This comes in the wake of at least two young boys being charged for allegations of rape and oral rape against teen girls in Ballymena. But we know what this really is. This is an explosion of frustration and anger that people are feeling at being unheard. And, you know, I think it was Martin Luther King who said it, that riots are the language of the dispossessed. And that is the reality. That's exactly what is happening. But also we're dealing with a situation here of problem, reaction, solution. Yes, indeed we are, because there's nothing quite like a disorder and a riot for the state to come in and take over. And there's a number of things that has happened. DUP Communities Minister Gordon Lyons has been referred to standards for giving away details of a leisure centre where people had fled to. The leisure centre is now burnt down, or not burnt down, but it's been burnt. There's been a significant fire there. It's pretty awful. And it is scary. And there are agitators online that people should be wary of. Some of them are based in India and the Philippines and pretending to be British patriots. They often use British names or locations in their handles to fool people, such as, for example, Berkshire Rose and that type of thing. Be wary of these faceless and nameless troublemakers who make money on X from their posts. And believe me when I say this, they are part and parcel of bringing increased censorship to the internet. And the absolute focus of the police and standards is to do with what's going on online. Problem, reaction, solution. An excuse to bring in digital ID. Absolutely. Just say no to brick card, says Maze Maz. Yes. It's some bad stuff that's going on there. And two boys were charged with attempted oral rape. A third person was arrested in connection to the investigation as well. And around 400 people gathered, probably on the worst night. The worst night, I think, was probably Tuesday. There's been fireworks, flares, bottles, rocks at police, footage of thugs torching homes. None of this stuff I can support, right? It literally reminds me of when any ghetto riots, they always tear down their homes. That's what they do. That's literally what happens. And that's what I say, problem, reaction, solution. And then you have these TikTok videos showing houses being burned, which are pretty awful as well. And then, of course, there is this that people are talking about, and that is people are literally writing, locals live here. And it reminded me of the old no Irish, no blacks, no dogs that was said to have been on windows in England about 50 years ago. And actually there's a lot of disagreement about whether this was a widespread thing or not, but definitely did this sign definitely did pop up in some bed and breakfasts, certainly in London. And it just reminds me of the whole same thing again. And it just feels like we're tarring and feathering people. What state of affairs that you have to get to if you feel the need to put on your window, locals live here, I work locally, I support Ireland. It's madness. Madness. I don't like it, and I'm not comfortable with it at all. And who is doing this? There is a suggestion that this obviously that there is some psyop taking place here. There's paramilitaries coordinating the riots, we're told. It's difficult to know because who trusts the police? That's the problem. And that's where we're getting a lot of our information from. So it's very, very difficult. But notes on doors to declare nationality is a horrible step backwards. And so, yeah, not good. It's not good. It's not good what's taking place there. It really isn't. And but I also understand the frustration. And until we start listening to people, then we're in trouble. And I think that this is absolutely to the advantage of the state, whether it is England, Northern Ireland, Wales or Scotland. It is always to their advantage. They want to bring in more totalitarian, draconian measures against us. And what better way to do that than for the safety of people as a consequence of disorder and rioting, right? And the police don't even trust the police, says Cavan. I know, isn't that the case? I think we shouldn't hang around anymore. There's been so much going on overnight, and we've got the man who is here to help us through it. You know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the one and only Warren Thornton. Here he is. Good morning, Warren.
Good morning, Sonia. How are you?
I'm very grateful and relieved to see you, Warren, because there's stuff happening that people just can't make sense of. I think we have to start immediately with Iran. And look at this tweet. Remember, we didn't initiate it. Warren, what went on tonight? What can you tell us?
Right. So early, about 3 a.m. In the morning, they launched all these strikes, literally Israel into Iran. There are tons and tons of stuff to go through. So let's take you through it bit by bit. Rafael Grossi, on May the 21st, we'll say this, on May the 21st, we showed a document that showed that America asked Israel to do, if you remember, we spoke about this last time I was on, America basically sent the Israelis a document saying, we need you to carry out the bombing. And of course, Israel couldn't do it because they've been bombing various dignitaries that have gone to Gaza. Then, of course, we had 2 people killed outside, of course, the museum. And, of course, this document, we literally turned around and said that the strikes ideally should take place between June the 12th and June the 14th. Now, then what we had was Rafael Grossi coming out as a member of the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency. Literally, and again, we published the documents that show his emails with Israeli intelligence. He made a report on Iranian scientists. A couple of those got killed beforehand. Overnight, we've had at least 4 more Iranian scientists killed with strikes on their buildings, including children. And they've also struck Iranian nuclear facilities. They struck at least 2 of them. Rafael Grossi has said that no strikes were made in Natanz whatsoever. We've actually got the videos to show that is absolutely not the case. And of course, America and Marco Rubio, who got 1.6 million from the Israeli lobby last year and 1 million this year, has come out and said that it's a unilateral strike. And of course, they had nothing to do with it, which of course is utter nonsense. They've killed 3 Iranian leaders, the head of the military. They've killed over 4 scientists, including 2 of their children, ages 4, 5, and 6. We have actually somebody, an aid worker, a friend of ours, who has sent us all the up-to-date information that those being received to the hospital are at least 50 civilians, and amongst them is 4 children that are dead.
It's absolute madness that's taking place. I went to bed last night, everything was fine, woke up and chaos appears to have taken place. So are we talking about 200 warplanes? Is that an accurate figure that has descended?
Pretty much. So they're saying that 200 Israeli jets took place. Well, there are Israeli jets up at the moment shooting down these drones which are crossing Lebanon, crossing Jordan airspace, and everywhere else. Now, the thing is, there are British, French, American, Jordanian, and of course Israeli jets up in the air. So it's not just Israeli jets that have taken part in that strike, even though they will deny it. We have the flight logs from Akrotiri Air Base in Cyprus that shows that Britain took part in at least something inside this, and American jets took off from there as well. So the nonsense that they are spouting, that this was a unilateral decision by Israel to do this, is of course utter bunk.
Wow. And do we have any involvement? Is the UK involved in this in any way?
Yes, absolutely. The jets took off from Akrotiri Air Base in Cyprus, and of course not only mapping but jets as well. And it might interest you to know that the moment Israel launched the strike, the Israelis jumped in their government plane. It's called the Wings of Zion, and we actually tracked it heading towards Akrotiri Air Base when they turned their transponder off. So the government basically left their people to get the retaliatory strikes from Iran all on their own.
So Iran military continued tweeting, and they followed with, remember, we didn't initiate it, with this will not be a mere demonstration of will or technological capability. This time our response will be lethal. This is absolutely war talk, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely it is. And Iran, of course, people have to remember this is weapons of mass destruction all over again.
Right.
40 years ago, Sonia, they said they are 2 to 3 years away from having a nuclear bomb. In 1990, they turned around and said they are 1 year away. In 2010, they turned around and said they are months away from having it. In 2024, they said they were weeks away. And in the last 3 weeks, they turned around and said they're days away from having this nuclear capability. So this is something that they've been wanting to carry out. This is regime change. It has nothing to do whatsoever with Iran's ability to make a nuclear weapon.
Warren, can I ask you to move forward slightly, just because some of the mic is cutting in and out? Thank you, darling. So, but we've been hearing, haven't we, certainly for the last 2 weeks, all this Iran war talk. We've heard it from the American administration. We're hearing it in the UK. So they've been building us up to this, Warren, right? So, and as you say, it was very much designed around this date, the 12th to the 14th. So that war talk, tell us about some of the kind of people involved in it and what it was really about. Is it about getting us all in ready for World War III?
Yeah, absolutely. As we've always said, and I hope the microphone is a bit better now. I've moved it closer to me. I've got the fan on. Got the fan on at the moment because it's 34 degrees.
Thank you.
34 degrees here, and it's quite warm. So what we've got is we have a bit of a problem because they have been doing this and getting this ready. Now, you remember we've had chats about this before, that they would leave Ukraine. And in fact, a lot of these weapons were taken from America, and they were meant to go to Ukraine. Zelensky's been getting very upset, and they were transferred across to Israel, which of course is, shall we say, all sorts of nonsense and craziness has spun from that. And of course, we're looking at over 2,000, shall we say, weapons that have been given to Israel in the last week, which is absolutely bizarre.
I think this actually neatly brings us into something else that we need to discuss. This UK, oh, sorry, I got the wrong one on. I wonder if I can just remove that just briefly. Yeah. And that is the UK training, Israel military aid, questions asked in Parliament, all links up. Take it away, Warren. What can you tell us?
Yeah, very, very simply. The same Ukrainians, the SBU that were training in the UK, this has been ongoing. And of course, there has been various Iranian sites that have blown up in the last few weeks, most of them factories or very, very useful places for the Iranians to have. And of course, the SBU were trained to do this by British intelligence, and so have Mossad agents. They've been coming in all the time. And of course, the question was finally asked in the House, the one we've been shouting from the rooftops. Rachel Maskell actually asked, are any of these people being trained in the UK? And of course, this is an ongoing situation. And the fact that we've had 3 factories completely burned to the ground or explode should tell you everything you need to know about these sites going up in smoke.
So the impression that I think a lot of people are getting is the whole issue with Iran really feels very much like the whole issue to do with Russia, and that is we have to find a new bogeyman, right? Is that really what's going on, do you think?
Yeah, well, it's exactly what we said it would be. Once it starts going south in Ukraine, they would move on to Iran. And we always said that that's the appetizer for China in late 2027, 2028, that Ukraine and Iran were just the appetizers for the main meal that's coming up at a later date. And of course, they are now starting to shift away from Ukraine. Of course, they cut back on the weapons, as I say, and they've given them to Israel. They knew this strike was coming. They planned it. They were getting ready for it. They just needed to get everybody on side, of course. And we had one or two, if you like, false flags. Iran are nowhere near a nuclear weapon. Everybody knows it in the West. And of course, this is a spanking up, because if they have complete, shall we say, chaos in the region, then Israel are free to carry on then. This is all about regime change. They're free to carry on with taking over Gaza. And just to let you know this, Sonia, a friend of mine has sent me a video showing that you can buy land in the blue zone, which is areas of Gaza and the West Bank that have yet to be captured by Israel. But they are already selling the land rights to people for this. And if you buy outside of the blue zone, in other words, across what Israel already own, you get a complete tax break on this as well.
Wonderful, amazing, right? If good for some people, this is interesting. How Israel is losing the West. The Jewish Chronicle this weekend, and that already suggests straight away, doesn't it, that Israel controls the West? That headline. What do you make of that headline, Warren?
They're absolutely correct. AIPAC control the whole of the British government. They control the German government. They control the Italian government. There are only 4 people in the 2 houses of America that don't take money from AIPAC. That is absolutely incredible.
Goodness sake. That's just astonishing, isn't it? And obviously, we get that UK and US administration. There's nothing like it. There's literally no other country that has this kind of all-encompassing power over politicians. It's extraordinary. I've seen some of the headlines. They're horrible. UK headlines. What do you make of this? British mothers have to accept that their sons will have to die for NATO. I mean, this is real, horrible, ugly war talk, isn't it?
Yeah, it is absolute nonsense. Of course, British mothers don't have to die for NATO whatsoever, and I don't think British mothers are going to do so. And people are leaving the armed forces in droves because they don't want to be part of this, and it's hardly surprising. So I would say to this lady who actually writes for the Metro, if you want, British mothers, you're living in Britain, send your sons, but you're not going to do that, are you?
That's right. I mean, I've always said, right, these politicians, they want their wars, put their children on the front line. I think it would just change things in a day, wouldn't it? Immediately. It's because it's at such a distance from them. They don't care for our children. And the thing, I think I'm taking some heart, though, from the fact that a lot of commentators are not falling for this one. They're not falling for the whole let's go after Iran. And they are literally saying, no, America first, England first, UK first. And that makes a change, doesn't it? Because it's normally Israel first.
Yeah, it does, because everybody is waking up, and the people who come on your show are particularly wide awake, and it's good to see, because they are just going to keep pushing this narrative. It's the forever war, the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
We need another bogeyman. We've had orange man bad in Trump. We've had red man bad in Putin. We're about to get yellow man bad in Xi Jinping.
I want to talk with you about this flight from India yesterday. Extraordinary story. I can't make head nor tail of it. At least one man was said to have walked away unscathed, which is extraordinary, I think, from C-11A. It was a flight bound for Gatwick. Air India reporting that 53 British nationals were on board flight A171. The accident happened soon after takeoff. 242 members, including crew, were on board. It was a Boeing 878 aircraft, 169 Indian nationals, 1 Canadian, 7 Portuguese, and as I say, 53 Brits. Warren, what are your thoughts about this crash?
We've seen this coming. Literally, John Barnett, who was a former Boeing quality manager, spent years warning that 787s were being assembled with serious defects, including faulty oxygen systems in up to 1 to 4 planes, metal shavings near wiring that could trigger, obviously, flaps not working and mid-air disasters. Pressure was put on them to cover up quality failures to keep production moving. Boeing, he said, prioritized speed and profit over safety. and was punished and fired for that. In March 2024, just days after his legal testimony against Boeing, Barnett was found dead, officially ruled as a suicide.
Oh my days. And Warren, I mean, serious question, right? What do you make of somebody who is, did you see the crash? Because the crash literally, it took off and then it went down. I'm not going to show the video, but immediately
Yes.
flames engulfed the craft. But this man was said to have walked away out of the aircraft. Vishwash Kumar Ramesh. What do you make of that?
I'm finding that very, very hard to believe when you see the crash. And of course, they said that somebody else had walked away as well. I'm finding that very, very hard to believe. Seat 11A. Show us seat 11A then, please, where this gentleman ejected from. They're saying that he stepped out of the plane as it was coming down. But this doesn't seem, there are hardly any burns on this guy whatsoever with the fireball that we've got. I'm sorry. If you're buying that, I think this guy is possibly, should we say, somebody who was close to where the accident happened and occurred and maybe got hit by some debris. But I'm not buying for 1 second the fact that he was on board.
I mean, there's miracles and then there's miracles, aren't there? This would be an extraordinary miracle that he would literally be able to emerge from a plane that was engulfed in flames. I just find that extraordinary to believe. So, Warren, what is on your agenda? What will you be? Because you have a show this evening, presumably.
Yes. We'll be on live at 6 p.m. tonight. We'll be going through everything that has gone on with the Iran strikes. We will be showing once again the American involvement with it, and we'll also we need to keep a real good lookout for what's happening in Ukraine, because at the moment the area of Sumy is collapsing very, very quickly, and Zelensky is panicking left, right, and centre. Also, an area called Rivne is very much coming under attack, and of course they're collapsing. We've had the bodies you need to keep an eye out for, Sonia. Only 27 bodies were exchanged back to Russia, 1,212 from Ukraine. So there is all sorts of crazy sort of nonsense going on. And of course, the payout for the gentlemen who have died is over 2.2 billion.
Wow.
It's no wonder that Ukrainians didn't want to accept the people coming back.
Have you managed to have a look at what's going on at Bilderberg at all yesterday and today? And because they're obviously they're going to be, one of the areas that they're covering is depopulation. Did you see that? Oh, did you hear me?
Oh, sorry. I think I've lost you there for a second.
Sorry there. I said, obviously, Bilderberg is taking place this week. I think it started yesterday. It's going on for a few days. One of the areas that they're covering is depopulation. Did you see that?
If you look at what is going on with the depopulation events in all areas of,
right,
I think the UK and Europe, it is quite incredible.
Exactly. Let me read some of these comments. People are really seeing through media lies and know their methods now, says Ian. And that, I think, is something that you and I are witnessing in real time, right? As journalists, we're actually seeing how people are literally waking up to how much media have lied to them. So I think that we're here at the right time, Warren. That is my sense anyway. So listen, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We truly appreciate it. Give us some clarity to the madness that's taken place. Everybody, you can catch Warren at warrenthornton.com, and he teams up once a week with the lovely Lembit Opik, and highly recommended. Go catch our Warren. Take care, Warren. Lovely to have you with us this morning. Warren Thornton, everybody. Wonderful. What a star. I see. The thing is, I'm a big fan of, you all know this, right? You guys all know this. I'm a big fan of Warren because he brings such clear, it's such clarity. He brings situations. He kind of like cuts through the crap and gets us there, which I always very much appreciate. Now, before I bring in my next guest, I want to briefly look at this situation to do with Jay Slater. Jay Slater, of course, the British teen who died on Tenerife last June. They're now talking about his last moments. Let me just show you this. This is Jay with his mates, people he went to Tenerife, Lucy Law and Brad Hargreaves. And let me just find this. I think this is quite interesting. Mark Williams-Thomas, who I have absolutely zero time for, TV detective, but he has a new podcast coming out, which I think is probably coming out today or certainly at the end of this week, which kind of like now, right? And he's actually traced Jay's last moments. Now, this is really significant and really serious, because what Mark Williams Thomas is claiming, and I have no, even though I find him fairly reprehensible, he stuck his nose into the Madeleine McCann case and various other things, but I have no reason to believe that he would actually be lying about this. And what he actually says is that the last moments of Jay Slater's life, now we do know some of it. So we know, for example, let me just see if I've got this image that I'd like to bring in, if I still got it. We know, for example, that Jay was at an Airbnb. He'd gone there with this guy, Ayab Qasim, who is a convicted drug dealer who had been previously imprisoned. And Jay had sent a message saying that he'd stolen a Rolex watch between, I think, 10 and 12,000 pounds. And he was going off to the Airbnb with Ayab Qasim. And now what we've discovered, according to Mark Williams Thomas, is when Jay left the Airbnb that morning and started on his walk back to where they were staying in Tenerife, and he talked to Lucy Law, his friend. According to Mark William Thomas, the reason that Jay had armed himself with 2 knives before fleeing the Airbnb is he stole a bag of ketamine from a drug dealer. That's really not a very wise thing to do, right? And now this is a drug dealer, a convicted drug dealer, who was not at the inquest and who apparently will now be at the inquest, because the inquest was last month, and all of the kind of like major witnesses, the people who were there with Jay, were not there. And in fact, Lucy Law's family said that they didn't even know until the day of the inquest, when the police showed up, and she was away back in Tenerife. So she didn't even know about it. So it looks like Lancashire police are fouling this up bigly. And of course, all the people who were around Jay before he disappeared must absolutely be at the inquest. The inquest is the final say in what happened to somebody and what led to their death, the cause of death. How can these people who last saw him not be at this inquest? But I think it's interesting. So again, what we're dealing with is a situation where we are hearing that Jay Slater was leading a very risky lifestyle, and it's not ideal, it's not great, but he was still a kid. And I do believe people can come back from difficulties. I've talked before about my own childhood. It was difficult. I was pretty much written off because of, various things, dysfunctional family, quote unquote, fabulous family, actually. But, and so I know how people can come back from that. But the age of 19, he had no chance. And the inquest ruled that it was actually him falling and, striking his head that made it impossible for him to have survived that. But I don't know. What we do know is that Jay had taken a cocktail of drugs and then just stole repeatedly on that evening from people. And that can lead you into bad places. Right. I want to bring in my next guest, something much more uplifting and positive, actually. And this is something that I talk about often. I talk often about our education system, about home education, about the indoctrination of children, obviously through mainstream education. I'm going to talk to somebody who has knowledge not only of mainstream education, what it's about, what it represents, but also what happens when you step outside of the system. So let us bring her in. Here she is. Her name is Kimberley VALLIS. Hello, Kimberley. How are you, smiley lady?
Hiya, Sonia. Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Really, really good, and excited to kind of share a bit of my story and just, I suppose, encourage parents and those in mainstream just to, wake up a bit, I suppose.
Absolutely. Now, do me a favour. Can you turn down a microphone or whatever you're speaking on? Because it's a little bit loud.
Let's go. Let's have a look. This is where teenagers are good, aren't they?
Yeah.
Just talk quieter.
Right. Oh no, don't worry, that's not the kind of show we are, right? Hello,
is that better?
Is that better? It's kind of better. Probably could do with a little bit more down, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to distract people, because otherwise we'll have people in the comments going, please turn it down, and they'll be completely distracted from the wonderful things that you're about to tell us.
Absolutely.
LP said you certainly woke us up. Right. I wonder if that's a little bit better now.
How's that?
Yeah, that sounds better. That sounds better. Stella says, grand rising, Kimberley. Indeed. Now, Kimberley, your husband wrote to me because he's clearly extremely proud of you. Thinks that you are the bee's knees, right? We'd had somebody on who was talking about, the issues of education and outside of the system. And he wrote and said, my wife not only climbs mountains with these kids and everything. So obviously, clearly, somebody is very, very proud of you, which is wonderful to hear. You are a youth mentor who turned your back on the system around around C19. You're now, well, you're doing all manner of things. So tell us, first of all, about when you were in the system and what you did within it.
Absolutely. So, as a lot of parents do when they have children, it's that juggle, isn't it, between lifestyle, work and being a parent. And I came from a mentoring background. I worked for the local authority working with children that weren't in education or training as an engagement worker. And then I had my son, and I needed that term time only. So I then explored being a TA, a teaching assistant within a secondary school. And I loved it. Oh, I loved it. We had an amazing resource base, amazing staff, worked within the SEND department and children in care and pupil premium children, so those on low income. And I loved it. I loved the challenges of it. We had really empowered staff at that point, and engaging staff. And then tides started turning and academisation happened. We lost our incredible Senko, and it just started going downhill a little bit because everything was tightening up. The restrictions were getting tighter, and this was even before C19. I like being outside of the lines anyway. That's just how I roll. And my bag was trying to teach additional literacy, you know, not just extra literacy or literacy on top, but more literacy besides. And by the time they came to me, they were so disengaged and just it wasn't for them at that point. And I wrote my own curriculum. So I went from a TA to a HLTA, which is a higher level teaching assistant, and wrote my own curriculum based on life skills and the passions of interest of the young people that I was working with. And that's from 11 all the way up to 18 at secondary. And it was working. Oh, it was working. And we had happy kids, slightly happier teachers. I mean, that's the other thing, is that these teachers are stressed out. So how can you teach and bring joy in education when you are you're stuck yourself? It's a hard life as a teacher. I know that.
It really is. And I could relate an awful lot to my daughter's teachers when she was at primary school. And for a period of time after primary school, she was home educated. She actually chose to go back into the system about 13 because she missed the classroom environment. But I'm so grateful for the 2-3 years that we had, because I feel that we broke some kind of stranglehold. Because obviously we know about indoctrination. You sound exactly the type of teacher or a teaching assistant that I would have wanted around my child. You know, you have hope. First of all, a lot of people are beaten down by the system, but you went on to do some incredible stuff. I've been looking at your website. It really reminds me of the stuff that my daughter was doing as well. And one of the things that you've got is the Adventure Project. That looks fantastic. That is the type of stuff that children want to be doing. Children, by and large, are not learning well by rote, right? Children need to get out and experience life. Talk to us about the Adventure Project.
So when C19 happened, I couldn't fight anymore in the system. Oh. So on an inset day in January 2022, I handed my resignation in and deregistered my son, who had just started at that secondary school. Enough was enough. I then panicked for about 8 weeks, thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I started retraining. So I retrained myself in education, also sound therapy, and lots of health and wellness modalities. And the Adventure Project is basically my version of my classroom and my curriculum. So I was home educating. The mainstream part of me was trying to get that structure in, and I was like, this is not working. It only took a couple of weeks for me to realise it wasn't working. And we unschooled, and we didn't put any pressure on. So we focused on DIY, life skills, cooking, photography, creative stuff. And then I did stand in the park. So one of my friends, Cara, heard all about my idea of starting this project of working with home educated families. And we registered as a CIC, so we're not for profit. And we opened on my birthday in 2022 with 10 families out of a village hall. And it was hard going because we had to convince the local parish council to let us play in their playing field, because the idea of home ed was even just 3 years ago so out there that they all thought we were feral. We're slightly feral, but in a good way,
in a fantastic way.
way. Yeah.
The thing is, I want to talk about the schools bill with you as well, because it's the same thing, right? And they always go after home education. And every now and again, you get a situation where some child has been neglected who was home educated, and they immediately want to turn on every home educating family possible, right? They want to be able to use isolated tragedy against all home educating parents. And we had a similar thing. Ed Balls was the education secretary at the time. And what he wanted was home educating parents to have a regular kind of like check-in and just have people drop into their homes whenever the local council decided. What is the situation now? How oppressive is home education?
I mean, as a parent myself, I'm one of the success stories, really. We deregistered H. You go on, it's not so much a register, but you go on the EHE, which is the elective home ed, I suppose, register within the local authority. Some parents don't. If you don't register your child in the system at all, you know, they're not known, because obviously H went through the schooling system, so there was that element. What we find is that you have to do annual reports, but the local authority is so overrun. I mean, H's reports, they're great because I just like, I suppose, showing them that home ed is successful and working. So it is good. But we are concerned about especially as a project, about the restrictions that this bill can put on us, take away that control. And my other son, Adam, and this is where it came from, which is what Tony said, he's got an EHCP. So he's autistic with the ADHD. Mainstream school does not suit him at all. He was flexi-schooled for a while, but he found it a real struggle settling into adventure. He was more successful there, but sharing your parent is really hard. But we found the most amazing holistic, basically a school just like adventure that looks at the whole person holistically. What we want to do is make sure that adventure still runs and still supports families, again, outside of those lines. So we are supporting our parents to fight that bill, go on rallies, go up and do the petitions. But what it means for us is that in terms of that bill is, it could really restrict the families that we're supporting. So, and we want to carry on doing that. We've got a waiting list. We're full. Yeah, so
people are waking up. This is the thing, that people are waking up. And I think what happened over the last 5 years, everything like the corruption, the levels of madness became so transparent that people were like, hold on a second, this is just not making any sense. What was done to our children at the time was fairly egregious as well. Obviously, there's a whole generation of children we have yet to see the impact of C-19 and how that has impacted us. But I think a lot of people have realized that the mainstream system does not work for them. It does not work for their children, because it is about turning out children who are ready to stock factories. Right? Yeah, that's right. Worker ants, worker bees, that sort of thing, right? So you've got 4 sons. How are you managing this?
It's a juggle. I can't take credit. I do this alongside Tony, so that's my very supportive and just awesome husband. So he actually came on as a mentor. He's behind me that much, and we're looking at getting bigger and better. We're going after a farm at the moment, so we can help even more families. And for those that are stuck between or fall through that net with their EHCPs, there's another element that's kind of between everything, which is education other than at school. And that means those that have EHCPs that aren't accessing any education, mental health, emotional health, social situations. They are huge things that we support with adventure, as well as the life skills and following those passions and interests. And we're seeing just amazing, our families are amazing. We call ourselves a tribe because we support each other as this massive community. And these kids are flourishing. And actually, everyone outside of us is starting to see that. In fact, there's a mug up there from one of my members of staff that says, "Be the change." That change. And I look at that every day, and that's what we're doing. We are showing people how to live outside of the system successfully. If you need to have that toe in, for that financial support. If you have that EHCP, it can be done. We are supporting that through these EOTAS packages. But yeah, it's exciting because
it is exciting. You know, the thing is as you say, be the change, right? Be the change that you want to see in this world. But the thing is, you're looking at children holistically, which is what I like, because you're not just looking at, you know, kind of like physical activities or what they might need in terms of education, but you're also looking at their holistic health. And that includes, so you're a Tai Chi instructor, is that correct?
Yes, in fact, that's what I'm doing now. So Serendipity with Kimberley is my other element. I'm a health and wellness mentor for adults, because you need to be healthy as an adult to be able to support your child. If they've got social, emotional, mental health, or you know, autism, or you know that. You know, you need to be well. So right after this, I'm an associate for Penny Bron UK. I work with cancer patients and I teach Tai Chi. But I do that with my young people as well. So it is that holistic picture. But I teach everything from foraging, so using natural remedies. You know, there's not cow pole in my house. And I teach that to others. I do wellness events, wellness days, and I don't know if you noticed the twang, that's just outside of Bristol, so South Gloucestershire, which was down from where you were.
Indeed, because Cotswolds, obviously, Cyrus is just a hop, skip and jump away from you, and it's beautiful countryside out there. It's perfect for what you're doing, actually. But what do you think you can tell us about young people today that we're missing? Because there seems to be an absolute disconnect between so many adults and young people, like adults writing young people off, which I always think is fairly outrageous anyway, because you know, children are not a monolith. They're not just one thing. Obviously, there are lots of different things. But what do you think that what you're doing can actually teach us and enable us to teach children better? Because I think classrooms are largely a very, very bad idea. So talk to us. What can we do better with children?
Empower them, educate them in every facet of life. You know, we want healthy adults from these children, and I can use my 4 boys as an example, because all 4 of them are different and they learn in different ways. So it's making sure that when you're teaching them, it's accessible, it's exciting. That's the other thing as well. It's things that, you know, we go off on tangents all the time in adventure, and I'm learning. Making mistakes is a big thing. You know, we've got so many young people, because adults hate making mistakes, but actually that's a lot of the time how we learn. Accountability, taking responsibility. A lot of our young people that are really motivated to learn, and that's where we've lost that in school, that self-directed motivation to learn, because they are really engaged in what they're doing. Then we're an ASDAN centre at Adventure. That was something just to kind of replicate the curriculum that I did. It's passion and interest based, so they choose to sit down and do animal care with us. They choose to sit and do, or actually not sit, go outside and do gardening. We get out into the community. So at the moment, Tony's leading a group of teenagers supporting the local churchyard just to get on top of the gardening there. And these guys aren't told to do it. That's the other thing. They're asked, or they ask us. And that's we don't have locks on our gates. They run to us rather than away from us. And that's the massive difference. Empowerment, that's the big thing. And actually finding how these children learn, because as an adult, and even as a child, I was terrible at sitting down at a desk. That's why all my jobs aren't sat down at a desk. All my jobs are moving around. But these types of careers aren't told at jobs fairs or careers fairs. No one heard about a yoga teacher when I was a teenager as a career path. People don't know. So it's giving them that life experience, and getting them out there. We go on tour, so we don't just stay. We're in a scout hut at the moment, amazing scout huts. We've got loads of fields and nature, but we get out and about. So we visit people, we talk to people, we get people coming in. It's empowerment. That's what we need to do, and show children that they've got that innate power in them.
You make life feel exciting. I'm sure children love loved being around you, because that's the thing is children just want passion. They want excitement about life, right? You know, and hope, being able to offer hope. And a lot of the time, the school curriculum, as we say, is literally just about churning out compliant individuals. And we saw that absolutely over the last 5 years. So, Kimberley, what can we do in any way at all to support you in terms of the bill? I've already put links to both your websites in the description. So just tell us before you leave us, what can we do to support you?
Research the bill. If you're a home educating parent or a parent with SEND or EHCP child, you need to look at this bill. There are tons of Facebook pages, Telegram groups talking about this bill. What it means for you is that lack of control, that decision making over your child, and you need to get that because you're their parent, you are their advocate, and they need you. So get on it. And if you want to reach out, if you're in my Lush area, then reach out and I will point you in that direction. But yeah, we're doing good stuff at the Adventure Project. We do have a support page on there if you want to get behind us, and yeah, happy to help anyone that's on this path as well.
Wonderful. Lisa said, if only there were more Kimberleys teaching from the heart like this, truly empowering. And that is the reality, is that I have to say, I was very, very fortunate at primary school. My daughter had several wonderful teachers, wonderful. And, you know, a good teacher is worth their weight in gold, right? But so few of them, because they're disenfranchised by the system. That is absolutely, yes. They're destroyed. They're broken down by the system. They go
broken by a broken system. And actually anyone that's dealing with that system, with Adam's EHCP team, I'm a real nag. I have to be, because I'm Adam's advocate. It's not their fault, but be the change and make that change, and don't just go along with it. Call it out. Teachers, start calling it out. Be brave.
Exactly. Wonderful comments here. Ray J says sorry, they're going so fast. Sorry, people. Let me just go to that. Ray J said, knowledge is normal. Lack of knowledge is policy. Ooh, love that. And Sail Away said, they want a sense of purpose, not to be a cog. And that is the thing, is that every human being wants to feel that they count, that they're not just a number, that they're not just a cog in the machine. And I think that is exactly what you bring to them. I love it. Honestly, if you were around when my daughter was home educating, I would not hesitate to put her in your care, because the reality is, and I think you already alluded to it, is that when we send children to school, these people are part raising our children with us. We should not underestimate the role they are playing in the lives of our children. So we have to get it right. So listen, Kimberley, absolutely wonderful to have you with us. Thank you, hubby. You're absolutely right. I'm not surprised he's proud of you. I'm really not. Kimberley, last word to you.
Empower those children, be brave yourself, and just for both of you, learn that innate power within you and listen to your own instincts, especially as a mum or a dad. Don't let the school switch those instincts off. Trust your own voice.
Oh, you're an absolute star. Everybody, this is Kimberley VALLIS. And if you happen to be in South Gloucestershire, I cannot hesitate to recommend this woman. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Kimberley, take good care of yourself. Trevor says, brilliant guest. Thank you, Kimberley. Cheers, Kimberley, says Stephen. Absolutely. Kimberley VALLIS, everybody. Take good care. Lovely weekend to you and yours, Kimberley. Lovely to have you.
Bye, everyone.
Isn't she lovely? She's lovely, isn't she? Top work, says Marcuson. Indeed. She was cool. Very good vibe, says Inner Tuition. Indeed. I want to look at one story before I bring in my next guest. Very, very powerful story. Well, I don't book rubbish guests. You know that, people, right? You know that. Listen, good post. This is excellent. We've got Lewis Brackpool, the journalist, joining us on Monday. Lewis is one of the very few journalists who is actually out there doing the job, doing the work, filing freedom of information requests left, right, and centre. And one of the things that he's currently researching, and with some very interesting results, is the relationship between government and British media, and how government is influencing British media. And he did a brilliant post and actually some brilliant work into the normalization of bugs. And what he showed was Richard Madeley, who presents Good Morning Britain, was eating bugs that had been kind of like cooked for him. And Richard was full of great compliments about the food. He said it was really tasty, it was delicious, just needed a bit of salt with it, and then it was great and everything. But the fact is, ITV have been normalizing bug eating for a very, very long time. I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here. It's infamous for that. You know, eat a bug, eat a sheep's anus, all that kind of stuff. That was all. They've been normalizing it for well over a decade. That is the reality. British media is the government, says Ray. I get you. I get you. Lewis's FOI requests are brilliant, LB. Well, Lewis will be joining us on Monday to give a full breakdown of what he has discovered, which I'm very much looking forward to. And the other thing that I meant to talk about on Wednesday and didn't have time to was, first of all, bravo to the few brave MPs who stood up to ban non-stun slaughter this week. Of course, it fell on deaf ears. It's not going to happen. I said that in advance. It's important to understand that the both the Muslims and the Jewish communities have great influence over British politicians. There is absolutely no way that either halal or kosher is going to be outruled. However, I was really impressed with what Rupert Lowe had to say. I'll just briefly play this. He seems to be a one-man fighting machine at the moment, but this is what he had to say.
Ban non-stun slaughter, we should ban halal slaughter, and we should ban kosher slaughter.
Now, I'm very glad that he finally managed to say that, because up to this point, all he's been talking about is banning halal slaughter, as if he was a little bit scared to say kosher slaughter. But the reality is, and I talk as somebody who doesn't eat any meat, right? So I think abattoirs are horrible, whichever way you look at it. But the idea of non-stun slaughter is clearly too much for many people. But the fact is, the reality is most Labour MPs don't want it banned. Most Conservatives kept quiet. No Reform MPs attended. Admittedly, they did have a conference in Wales. However, this is an issue that is close to the heart of Reform voters. There should at least have been one representative there. The whole issue was raised following an online petition. Jamie Stone, Lib Dem, he spoke. He said, I beg to move that this House has considered e-petition 700-557 relating to the non-stun slaughter of animals. Anyway, the point is it's still going to continue, and we knew it. And that is simply because MPs are spineless. They're spineless. I'm very glad he spoke up about it as well, Stephen. And Martin says, Reform are useless. Did anybody see that Zia Youssef, who resigned and then came back in, and then Dr. David Bull was put in place of the chairman? And obviously they are now, Reform's completely out of touch with their initial supporters, completely out of touch. I mean, just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But Zia Youssef is now talking about running as a politician. Eating violence is not beneficial to one's spirituality. Summer Breeze, can I have an hallelujah? I believe you. That's true, Honor. If you get a curry, it's likely to be halal. That is the reality, is a lot of people don't even realize that the food that they're eating may well be kosher and halal, even without their permission. So Stephen says Reform a controlled opposition. I see. What did you make up, Frankie? What did you make up? Right. I want to welcome in my next guest. This is such a powerful story. Let me just make sure I've got everything lined up. Now, this is a story that we have talked about before. With Michael Norton, brilliant Michael Norton, who does a whole load of stuff to do with miscarriages of justice and has done for at least quarter of a century. I think it's at the University of Bristol. They had a conference the other week, but Michael is absolutely brilliant. And he's talked about this story before, and it is the story of Robin Garbutt, the Postmaster. Let me bring in some imagery so you can see exactly what we're dealing with, and then we will bring in Jane. Let me just get it for you. How are you all in the comments? Very busy chat this morning. Great to have you with us, peeps. Right. I want to start off with this image just to give you an idea of who we're talking about. Did the post office IT scandal help to convict an innocent man of killing his wife? Well, let's bring Jane in and ask her this question. And I think I already know the answer. Here she is, Jane Metcalf. Good morning, Jane. How are you?
Hi, Sonia. Yeah, good. How are you?
Really good. Thank you for being with us, Jane. You are, of course, a long-term campaigner on behalf of Robin. I've been through the whole story again. I'm actually gobsmacked that this is still going on, given the swathe of new evidence that you have been able to present. So let us first of all go back, because many people will be familiar with this story, but only from the perspective of mainstream media. So let us talk about it. Talk to us about Robin Garbutt and what happened.
Well, Robin Garbutt's a really nice, hard-working guy. He's never had a parking ticket, never shown any, violence towards anyone ever in his life, never had any criminal convictions or anything against him. Before we go into the story, I just wanted to point out, because we've obviously only got a couple of minutes here, that the important information is that Robin was convicted by a 10-2 jury, so there was already doubt with the jury. It should never have gone before a court. There was never enough to prosecute him. However, obviously that they did manage to push it through. There was no DNA whatsoever connecting Robin to the crime. However, there was DNA on the murder weapon at the crime scene of at least, 2 men on the murder weapon, 4 men at the crime scene. There was 3 known criminals in the village that morning who'd all served time in jail for robbery. There was blood in the downstairs toilet that belonged to somebody from the village. There was hair at this crime scene that went missing. There was a fake gun and mask found a few miles later, the next day after Diane was killed, and has never been tested. So I just wanted to sort of put those important points before, because it's so difficult to condense.
It is so difficult, but don't worry, I'm going to help you. And
you.
I think it's such an important story. And so let's just go back a little bit. Obviously, Robin was convicted in 2011 of murdering his wife. Was it Diane or Diana?
I think it's Diana, but she was always called Di.
Right, got you. And as you say, you've been right there, presenting some evidence. So the story doesn't make sense as is. And let's just talk about, first of all, the 2 central planks that you have talked about frequently, which is to do with, let's talk about the time. So there appeared to be some confusion, didn't there, regarding the time? Talk to us about that. And don't worry, I'm not rushing you through this. Let's make sure that we get this story covered properly. Not at all.
Sonia. Robin always maintained that he woke at 4 o'clock in the morning. It was a typical, morning. He left Diana asleep, but very much alive in bed. He went downstairs and opened the shop from 4:30. They have a constant stream of farmers and stable hands coming through, newspaper delivery, milkman, delivery guys. So Robin served in excess of 70 customers in between the hours of 4:30 and 8:30 when the alarm was raised. There was never any question in the beginning that Di had been killed shortly before Robin found her, just after 8:30. The robber, at 8:30, Robin was in the little post office within the shop. It's like a little booth. And he heard the door click, thought it was Di coming through, turned around and it was a guy in a mask with a gun and said, "Don't do anything stupid, we've got your wife." And then Robin did what the guy asked him to do, filled his bag with £16,000 from the safe and flew upstairs and found Diana, and then he made the 999 call, which is actually available strangely on the internet. You can hear it. So that was Robin always had a tight alibi from 4:30 to 8:30. However, by the time they got to court the following year, the prosecution had produced a so-called stomach contents expert who was adamant that Diana had been killed between the hours of 2:30 and 4:30 before Robin opened the shop. To counter that, there was a very reliable witness for the defence who, on the day of the murder, had gone to the police to inform them that he had heard Diana call to Robin from the back of the shop at 6:45. But this in court, this reliable witness and this so-called stomach contents expert, Jennifer Miller, who turns out her expertise was archaeological digs. They were pitched together in court, and the prosecution said, "Look, we're not saying this chap who heard Di call at 6:45 is lying, but clearly is mistaken, because we've got this time of death expert who says Diana was already dead by 4:30. So obviously the jury must have gone with that. Although one of the questions when they go, when the jury go to deliberation and they go out of the courtroom, the only question they asked was, could they see this witness's statement again? They were told no, because that's not how the courts work. So the time of death was, it crucified really Robin, that this 2:30, 4:30, because it meant that there was only him in the building with Diana at that time.
Right. But
within the following year, she was completely discredited, this Jennifer Miller. Other pathologists came forward and have given evidence and said she got all her science mixed up. She gave a very short window. You can't give that kind of a window for time of death. It's impossible because everybody's body dies differently. And in another case, she was in the following year, she gave a 12-hour window. With Diana's case, she only gave a 2-hour window of death. So her case, all that evidence is now gone. She's been discredited, and the Criminal Case Review Commission accept that that's gone.
I mean, it is absolute mess in many respects, because a lot of it doesn't make any sense. First of all, there's absolutely no DNA linking Robin to this crime, but there is DNA, or at least there is evidence that links other people potentially. So let us talk about the murder weapon, the iron bar, which was not found until several days later. And what did they tell us about the iron bar, and why did it contain the imprint of a police officer who wasn't at the scene? What was going on there?
Well, Di was killed on the 23rd, which is a Tuesday, and the only thing that links Robin to that murder weapon is that the prosecution and the judge, this isn't verbatim, but they basically said, when they were summing up, that Robin, in the dead of night, while Diana was asleep, murdered her. He crept downstairs in the dead of night. That's the words that they use. He crossed the road and he climbed an 8.5-foot wall, and he placed the bar on the wall, the murder weapon on the wall, which is completely crazy, the idea of that in the first place. That's the only thing that links Robin to the murder weapon, what the judge and the prosecution said he had done with this murder weapon. On the murder weapon, it wasn't found for 2 days, and there's the DNA of Di and none of Robin's, but there's a full DNA of a policeman and another male, unknown male. Since that time, there's been evidence found by private investigator Mike Norton, who found television footage of that wall on the 24th, the day after the murder, and there is no bar on the wall. It's not there. It was placed there somehow by somebody on the 25th when it was found, but it's not there. It wasn't there. And Robin never went back. When all this terrible thing, this awful thing happened, when the police came and the ambulance came and everything, Robin was never left alone. Then he went later that day with the police, and then he was obviously being tracked. He thought as a witness, probably not by then. He was maybe already a suspect, but and he went straight back home in the evening. He was taken to his sister's and brother-in-law's house. So he never went back. He's never been back in that building ever since that morning, since, that terrible morning.
What happened with the DNA of the two people who were on the murder weapon, including the cop? What happened with that?
Well, there's one unknown male, which we don't know who he is, and then the police officer explained that his DNA must have got on the murder weapon because he was stood near it when it was found. He was part of the search team who allegedly found this bar. So he said either when he was talking, he must have, his spittle must have got on it, or he must have touched it inadvertently, which, perhaps maybe. But the other strange thing about that DNA, his DNA, is his DNA also appears at the crime scene, which was the pillow where Diana was killed. She was killed on the bed, and the same police officer's DNA is also on that pillow, despite the fact he never ever went in the building. He was on leave on the 23rd.
Isn't that evidence? Is that evidence that has been presented to the CCRC?
Yes, they have all of it.
And so you've now done, is it 4 appeals to the CCRC?
Robin's now on his 4th application. The first application went in 2012. They absolutely should have referred at that point. Absolutely, it should have referred. So now he's on the 4th, which went in September. We're now in June, and people won't know this, or some people will know this, but when you put an application in, you get appointed a case review manager who will then review your case. Bearing in mind, Robin's went in September. He's now on his 3rd case review manager. They gave him one, then they changed their mind and gave him another. Then they said you haven't got one, and now we've got a 3rd. So each time you get a case review manager, they have to start afresh reading the application. They take nothing into account that's happened before. You can't use anything that's gone on before.
Absolutely
and bearing in mind that every time you put an application in, you have to find new and fresh evidence. And Robin said the other day that, and Dr. Norton's written about this, Robin said the other day that it's like they are doing a gathering exercise, gathering all your information, all your fresh new evidence, until you've got nothing left, and they just keep knocking you back. And
Right. And it is exhausting. You knew Robin before any of this happened. I think he was a boyfriend of one of your friends. So have you ever been in any doubt about his guilt or innocence?
Absolutely not. 100% not. I think anybody who knew him, when all this first kicked off, when we heard that Di had been killed, it was, a huge shock. And then of course Robin. I mean, such a huge loss. Nobody can possibly imagine what that must have been like for Robin. She was his soulmate. 3 weeks later, Robin's arrested, which was even bigger shock then. But anybody who knows Robin knows that he's a gentle soul. Not an argumentative guy at all. So everybody knew that he wasn't capable. But then when people were finding out information about the case, there was no evidence, and everyone was kind of thinking, well, it won't even get caught because there's nothing. Right, it's all circumstantial. Right. It's also flimsy.
Yes,
especially when there's so much evidence against. I think as maybe mentioned earlier, there was a Crime Stoppers call made. Somebody rang Crime Stoppers, which is a police where you can ring in anonymously, and they named somebody and said, this character, we've got his name, came into a crack house, and he'd said he didn't mean to kill her. He had loads of stamps, and he was selling the stamps or whatever, and he said he didn't mean to kill her. That person who heard that conversation rang in the police.
Wow. Extraordinary. The problem is, and we were discussing this yesterday very briefly, is the whole idea is once they have that conviction, they are so reluctant to revisit it, aren't they? Because then they have to look at the role of the courts, of the police, and the state doesn't like to do that. But there is so much here. And also, I think it's very interesting, the whole issue, obviously, what's happened with the post office. And after, decades of these people fighting where they were accused of stealing and being thieves, and one person even walked in front of a bus, terrible things. Is Robin very likely a victim of this post office scandal?
100%. Yeah. When the post office gave shocking, damning evidence against Robin on no evidence, I think they must have been in their full fury then of prosecuting. And the guy who gave evidence against Robin in the courts, I've seen all his statements and everything, and he kind of boasts about the fact he's been responsible for prosecuting 250 sub-postmasters. And what he says about Robin's books, and says, this is typical of what I have seen throughout all my, career of prosecuting people, sub-postmasters. But on no evidence, it's just an overall view that he thinks, well, of course, all those 250 sub-postmasters were innocent, as is Robin. And the other point is as well that they didn't disclose records. The post office said they didn't exist, records that would have gone back. So this happened in 2010. They said that the records only went back to 2008. Robin and Di bought the post office in 2003. It was theirs. And of course, the records did exist. And those records would have shown that it was the same pattern all along. They turned the post office around. It was a post office that was in deficit. And then the business was thriving. They were doing really well. They were bringing more and more money in it. And Robin said that when he was arrested 3 weeks after Di was killed, and he went into his first sort of official interviews, if you like, the post office were there. And he said, in my naivety, I thought, they're there to support me.
Oh, dear God. That's awful, horrendous. And the thing is that, again, going back to what evidence they had, it was really all circumstantial. The prosecution had this idea that he was struggling, that he was financially in the hole, he was hiding it from his wife, and that was what it was all about. But again, there's no evidence to support that idea, is there?
No. It was just they had the post office was the building, the post office where the shop was, beautiful, and it'd been it was worth 450 grand. They had a £62,000 mortgage on that, so they had a shed load of collateral. Wow. Their total debts was £108,000, including credit cards that they used for the cash and carry and stuff. So £108,000 was their total debt managed. They didn't owe anybody. There was no letters coming through on the floor saying you've not paid, you've missed a payment. They hadn't, no payments were missed. They had a good living. Robin had always worked really hard. He had always had good jobs. He'd always owned properties, bought and sold, which is why they were able to buy this post office and have such a small mortgage on such a huge, property that was worth £450,000. It was all lies. It was all propaganda to push this case through and get a conviction. And of course, North Yorkshire Police at the time, they had 2 outstanding murder inquiries on the go. Maybe that's the reason why they had to shut this down, because they didn't want to have 3 outstanding murders. I mean,
we can't rule it out. I mean, we simply can't rule it out. We know too much now about how the system works that we cannot rule it out. And it's also important for people to know, although I don't have the video, but that is people who have been embroiled themselves in the post office scandal are supporting Robin, right? Talk to us about
we've
that.
got at least 5 high-profile, wonderful sub-posts. I mean, they've gone to hell and back. They're still. They honestly, the damage this has done to them, they've still not, some of them not been compensated. But we've got gorgeous Janet Skinner from Hull, who went to prison herself. I mean, she lost everything. Seema Misra, dear Seema Misra, who she went to prison, she was pregnant. And then Lee Castleton, who was obviously, I mean, what a guy. They're just wonderful people, and they're really honest. Sub-postmasters are. They're the pillars of the community, which is what Robin and I was. And then we've got Christopher Head, and we've got Tracy Falstead, and then there's a wonderful woman, El Sheikh, who's been heavily involved with the investigations, uncovered so much material through freedom of information. And she, supports that Robin's case absolutely should go back. All the post office evidence against him should be gone, completely taken away, and he should go back before the Court of Appeal. And of course, all Robin is asking is that. He's not asking anyone to just say I'm innocent. All he wants is his day in court, and the CCRC have stopped him at every opportunity of doing that, which is what they do. So the 2 planks of the prosecution against Robin, they've gone. They no longer there is no case against him.
Wow, that in itself is. But the thing is that you explain it so clearly, because this whole idea that obviously every time that you put in an application to the CCRC, and if people aren't familiar, the CCRC, that is the body that decides whether an appeal should take place. And of course, it's been subject to so much controversy. And, as Jane is saying, each time that they make an application, they have to submit new evidence. Well, you do run out of new evidence after a while, right? After like 4 or 5
that's what Robin's saying. That's what they're waiting for him to do.
Exactly that. So let us have a look at CCRC briefly anyway, because you'd obviously written an open letter to the previous head of CCRC, Helen Pitcher. What did you say to her?
I laid out the case. I wrote a very nice, kind, considerate letter to her, basically pleading with her to see common sense, to see what the whole world and his wife can see this. We've got barristers, DNA experts, scientists, forensic scientists. Everybody says this should go back to Court of Appeal. That there's huge doubt over this conviction. Everybody except the CCRC. So I begged her, basically. I pointed out the case to her. I explained how scary it was dealing with them. It's like dealing with it's like the biggest wall in the world that you cannot get over. You can't penetrate it. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to. Their doors are not open. Their doors are firmly closed. They claim in their blurb that they visit people. They don't. I don't know anyone, and I've been at conferences where there's prisoners there who have come out of prison who've said no one's ever seen the CCRC. Certainly Robin Garbutt hasn't, and many other people I know haven't. They say they'll talk to people. They don't want to talk to. I mean, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they want to go and see their applicants? And if they really cared about justice, which of course we know that's not what
they're protecting the system, aren't they? That's what they're doing.
They're actually there they're very successful in what they do because they're protecting the Court of Appeal. They don't want these cases to go back to the Court of Appeal. And Dr. Norton's been campaigning for 20 odd years or more to overturn the real possibility test, which is just nonsensical. It's a crazy test. It doesn't mean anything.
Can you explain that to us, what it is?
Well, I don't really know what it's not a test of, like, if you had a benefit system, or there's like a levels of numbers that you have to gather, say, scoring.
Oh, I see, to see whether that crime took place, right?
But they don't have anything like that. It's just, is there a real possibility that this case will be referred or be quashed by the Court of Appeal? Well, if Robin Garbutt's case can't pass the real possibility test, nothing can, because it's Robin's test. Robin's case is incredible. When you look at Andy Malkinson, what Andy Malkinson suffered, and thank God for Andy Malkinson, because thank God for him, bless his heart, he's there speaking out.
In prison for a rape he didn't do. 17 years, I think it was. Yeah.
He did, and he should. I think they knew 10 years before he was.
That's right. CCRC again. Yeah, absolutely.
CCRC again. I think. It's just. But so we're very lucky that we're very lucky And Robert, we're talking about Andy, we talk about him a lot, that, you know, thank God that he's staying around. You know, who would blame him if he didn't run for the hills and never engage with anybody, but he's staying around. And, you know, but this is, we've known for many years how poor the CCRC is. Robin, when he first put his application in 2012, said, we were there at a visit, and he said, I've got, you know, they have a 98, 99% rejection of their applicants. So Robin said, I've got like 1% chance of getting through these people.
Good
And we all knew that. We've known for a long time how bad it was, but it's only just very recent weeks, months, that it's really becoming evident to the general public just how appalling these people. I don't know. I mean, when you think about Karen Nella the other day admitting on camera that she goes into the office a couple of days a week every other month.
Wait, who's that?
Karen Nella is the CEO of the Criminal Case Review Commission.
And she says she goes in a couple of days a month.
They've just recently gone before the Justice Committee. There was Tessa Muntz MP, I think Andrew Slaughter MP was the chair, and they interviewed her and Amanda Pierce, who's the case review manager. They go in the office 2 or 3 days every other month.
Dear God. I mean, that's just bad. So do you think things will improve? Because obviously they've now got a new chair, haven't they? In the form of Dame Vera Baird. Is that going to improve situation, do you think?
There's been so much wrong with the CCRC for many years. They've had different heads. So it's not a head that's, you know, like, you know, Helen Pitcher said she was being made a scapegoat. Ironically, she probably was in a way, because it wasn't all her fault. This, you know, Robin's seen at least 4 different investigations into the CCRC. I think he's seen at least 3 different chairs in the time he's been fighting them. You know, nothing's ever changed. He's still in prison. But I think Dame Vera Baird, I've listened to her, I've listened to her interviews, and she's saying all the right things. She's saying what she's agreeing that they haven't learned from the mistakes. She's agreeing that people, because in my letter that I wrote to Helen Pitcher, I begged them to see him. How can you judge somebody without sitting face to face, eyeball him, talk to him, talk to this man, which they don't do. But she's hinted that might happen. She's said that she was going into the CCRC offices last Monday. If I could have done, I'd have been in Birmingham. I'd have been outside their offices with my banner and said, talk to me.
I'm sure you would.
She said that she'd go and see Appeal, who were the charity that helped Andy Malkinson.
Yes.
And I've contacted them and said, can I come? Will you let us come as well to this meeting? I just plead with Dame Vera to really please do what you say you're going to do. I mean, this lad has been in prison all these years. His mother is...
Well, I was just going to get to that. So here's the thing, Jane, is that if he is innocent, that means that this man has not been able to properly grieve for his wife, because that in itself is an injustice, right? Straight off the bat. So tell me about his family. They're supportive, right?
Oh, 100%. Of course. Robin's mum had a conversation with him on day one and said, you know that if you do this, we'll still support, you know. It's okay to say if you're guilty.
As families do. Yeah.
And it would have been okay. If he'd been guilty, he would have just got on and served his time quietly in a corner somewhere. Do you know what I mean? He's maintained innocence from day one. And then, like I say, anybody who knew him, who knows him, knows that that's the case. So Robin's Di had a wonderful relationship with Robin's mum, Joyce. But bearing in mind that when all this happened, Joyce would have been in her mid-60s. She's now in her 80s, you know, unwell. She's not well. She's now in a wheelchair. When she goes to visit Robin, she goes whenever she can. She goes maybe once a fortnight. Luckily, he's been moved to a prison. He was in Frankland, where Andy Malkinson was. He's in a prison near where Robin's mum lives now. So it's not as hard as it was. But his sister and all his family love him and support him. But I mean, during this time, Robin's father's died. And then recently, in January, his best friend and brother-in-law suddenly died in January. And Mark Stillborn is such a warrior for Robin. He's been interviewed lots. And the wonderful thing about Mark was he has incredible memory. And he was there with Robin from day one. From the day it happened, he was with Robin. So went through all the trial. And he's got, you know, sadly, and it's really, really upset Robin, because he can't be there for his sister. The family are grieving. And he's, you know, stuck where he is.
It's terrible.
And so there's an urgency about what we need Dame Vera to do. It's urgent.
Yeah.
if they take months, you know, I know that Robin can't be made a priority over anybody else, but anybody who's in prison who looks, you know, like there's Clive Freeman in prison. Well, you know about the Clive Freeman case, Sonia. You know, there has to be done urgently. They can't take months over this. They need to get a team in or storm the place.
We need to demand change, don't we? That's the thing.
Yeah.
We absolutely need to demand change, because it's not okay. The thing is that if we are saying that this man is innocent, that means there are guilty murderers walking around out there, right?
Yeah. Whoever did this must have sat in the shadows and watched all this unfold.
Right.
It's terrifying, isn't it?
It is absolutely terrifying.
They must be clapping. They must be thinking, how did we get away with this? We've got away with it. And they've pinned it on a lad who's never had a parking ticket.
Absolutely. Yeah. Maria wants to know if a lot of this is about demoralizing people. Well, to a degree, yeah, because if somebody is absolutely innocent, but they've now spent 15 years inside, despite endless new evidence, keep coming forward, keep being presented, it is demoralizing, I'm sure, because you speak to Robin regularly, don't you, Jay?
Yeah, I see him regularly. I speak to him a couple of times a week, but I think that what your callers just said then is absolutely on the money. It's all delay. Everything takes forever. Janet Skinner said that it took them months to convict her and send her to prison. It took them 20 odd years to overturn a conviction. And it's almost like it's set up to break you, and it does break you. They break you and they take forever to respond to you. I've lost count how many MPs I've written to, including Rishi Sunak, who did actually respond to me, but they always use the same party line of separation of powers. We can't get involved. Most of them don't reply. And I don't think, in fact, I've had no MPs want to help us. Nobody in government, honest to God, I swear on my life, none of them want to help. Nobody wants to. You're on your own. You are on your own. And it's only for the kindness of strangers who eventually become your friends. Some of them become your dear friends, you know, like Dr. Norton, Mike Norton, Dr. Sandra Lean, and Eleanor and the sub-postmasters. You're on your own. You have no one to help you. You have to turn into detectives and forensic scientists yourself to be able to fight. You know, you're against this huge machine. It's a massive machine.
Massive, absolutely massive. Annie Marr says they break you with lawfare. Yeah, it is. The process is largely the punishment, unfortunately, for people like Robin. And there is enough information there, clearly, for an appeal to take place. Clearly, whichever position you come down on, whether you say, well, he could still be guilty, there is still enough new evidence to be presented for an appeal. And that must be frustrating. More than enough. Jane, before you leave us, last word to you. What do you want people to know?
That Robin Garbutt is 1,000,000% innocent, and he always was, and the evidence is insurmountable to prove his innocence. And I'm just pleading with this new chair of the CCRC, Dame Vera, to please consider seeing us, going to see, or getting someone to go and see Robin. None of these people would want their family treated the way that Robin's been. You know, if a Helen Pitch or the CPS or any of their loved ones have been in this situation, they wouldn't want to think they were treated like, you know, how Robin's been treated, and many others. Robin's one of too many. But, you know, we plead with them to CCRC to get rid of the real possibility test, one of the first jobs, and then get in to see these people, get in to see Robin. He's now an expert on the CCRC. The CCRC have 7 exceptional circumstances that they quote that you will get to the appeal courts through these 7 exceptional circumstances. Robin ticks 5 of them. 2 are irrelevant to his case, and still not. They don't even respond to you when you put them to them. I wrote it in my letter to Helen Pitcher. Yeah, we need them to help and do
Thank you for doing what you're doing. It's so hard. Where's that doggy? I saw it in the background there.
He's laid on the sofa.
Oh, bless him. We do love dogs around here.
Yeah, there he is.
Oh, horrible. Absolute sweetie. Much better behaved than my psycho dog. Jane, it's been absolutely lovely having you with us this morning. Thank you for being so clear about this. And I've already put a link in the description to Robin's website where you can read up more about this. Let's get behind this. Let's support Jane and get
onto the CCRC watch, Empowering the Innocent CCRC watch. There's loads
I
of
will get that link in there as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all you do, Sonia. You're a little warrior. We really appreciate all you're doing. Thank you so much.
Let's fight the good fight together, everybody. This is the remarkable Jane Metcalfe. Isn't she wonderful? friend and
Thank you.
campaigner for Robin Garber. Take good care,
Cheers,
Jane.
Sonia.
Lots of love to
Bye.
you.
God bless. Bye.
Brilliant work. Isn't she brilliant? Absolutely brilliant. And it's so funny. Thank you, Sticky Marks and Kath, for the super chat. Well, I was just talking to her. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Lisa says, keep going, Jane. Well done. Stay strong. Teresa says, shocking, frustrating, and heartbreaking. What a story. And Hasnagara Jan says, take care, Jane. And thank you, Jane, says Trevor. Keep going, I think is the general message. And it is hard, it is exhausting, and it would be so awful. Can you imagine that? It's like, imagine that you've been caught up in a situation like that. You're completely innocent. You cannot grieve properly for your loved one, and you are now the guilty party who's now been locked up 15 years. And I think the evidence in its own self is actually overwhelming. There is nothing to link Robin Garber to the death of his wife. It's also, Mr. Max says, Jane is 1 in a million, isn't she? Isn't she? What an absolute star. Sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. Hung as a garage, and you know what I'm like. Absolutely awful. I even have trouble. Names absolutely baffle me. It doesn't matter what nationality they are. Names absolutely baffle me, and I do not know why, but it just is the way it is. And I'm going to blame that for when I was 18 months old. Thank you, Jane. Says Synchronized Soul. Thank you so much. Right. What to talk about? I see that Lawrence Fox. Thank you, Natasha. You're a star. Thank you. Lawrence Fox was back in court. I've just said that twice, like I have a stutter or something. Please don't write in saying that I'm making fun of people with stutters. I'm really not. Honest, I promise I'm not. And this is why. So he was at, it won't let me. I'm trying to share too many. There's a limit of how many you can share at once on StreamYard. Let me just bring that back in again so we know who we're talking about, although most of you will know who we're talking about when I say Lawrence Fox. So he was at Woolwich Crown Court in London. And why is Robin Garber just come on the screen there? That'll do nicely. So he was at Woolwich Crown Court in London yesterday. He's accused of sex offences after he allegedly shared an upskirting photo of TV star Narinder Kaur. Fox is accused of reposting the image on his X account in April 2024. It showed Narinder, who rose to fame really by kind of like being a TV gobshite, but she was also on Big Brother. And it showed her climbing out of a taxi in 2009. The photo was taken without her knowledge or consent. And there's lots of detail around this, but this is a live and active case, so I have to be very careful. But it also includes the fact that it was published in a newspaper. But Fox arrived hand in hand with his girlfriend, Elizabeth Barker. No formal pleas were entered, but a trial date was set for, and this is mad, December the 6th, 2027 at the same court. That makes no damn sense. That makes no damn sense though, right? Because that's like 2.5 years. And this is kind of like a basic case in fairness, right? It's a basic case, but 2.5 years seems kind of insane. And Sarah Forshaw, who is defending Lawrence Fox, asked if it would be possible to look at whether other venues may be able to accommodate an earlier date than December 2027. Narinder Kaur has waived her right to anonymity. She sat in the public gallery to watch proceedings. Fox is next due to appear for a further case management hearing on November the 14th this year, and he's charged with 2 offences of the Sexual Offences Act 2003. What else? In 2019, Fox essentially moved away from his acting work, where he was best known for the detective series Lewis. Since then, he's repeatedly come under fire. He does things like burns pride flags and black faces up his children, puts them online, all stuff like that. I think actually, and we are still allowed opinions, but aside from this court case, I'm not going to say any more about the court case because it's active. But aside from that, Lawrence Fox is, in my opinion, and has been over the last few years, a garbage human being. Yeah? That's what I think. I think he's long been working to a script that will benefit the controllers and not the people. I don't for a second consider him to be one of us. Absolutely not. So there you go. Right. What else to talk to you about? I want to talk to you about, and if we can get around to that shortly, but just to say briefly, Glastonbury. Glastonbury is coming up at the end of this month. Massive festival that takes place annually in the UK, in Somerset, on Worthy Farm. And there was, first of all, that we talked about this on Wednesday, a brilliant report by David Miller, professor, who had acknowledged in a tribunal that anti-Zionist views are worthy of respect in society. So we can criticize, at this moment in time, we can criticize Zionism and we can criticize Israel, but it's only a matter of time, right? But he did prove that. And I talked about his investigation into music industry Zionists who had sent, you know, kind of like secret letters or secret email, private and confidential email to the organizers at Glastonbury to try and get Kneecap, the Irish band, thrown off the bill. Well, they're still performing at Glastonbury, but Glastonbury is now pushing MMR. Yeah, absolutely. Festival goers are being urged to make sure they are vaccinated against measles before heading to Glastonbury. This absolute like levels of madness, right? That we cannot even do like simple things like attend festivals now without organizations and agencies getting involved. The UK Health Security Agency has said that the highly infectious illness is circulating across the country with high numbers in the southwest and London. I'm quoting directly, those are not my words. And it talks about how measles is easy to catch in environments like festivals or traveling. And Dr. Alistair Wood, speaking on behalf of the UKHSA Southwest, said, "We want festival goers to enjoy their time at Glastonbury and other festivals this year. Being aware of the current health risks will help those attending enjoy their time as much as possible." Marcus, and you and I are on the same page. I must admit, whenever I see these notices, I'm like, oh, okay, so they've actually got kind of like a back store of vaccines that they need to shift. So they're looking at where can we shift these. Marcusson is basically saying the same thing. I gotcha. Lisa says, I go to small festivals. Nobody will dictate to me. How dare they play God? Dark Commission said, why keep defending Kneecap? They celebrate the worst Irish terrorists and are frankly shite. Well, because I want to. And I like the fact that they're standing up to be counted over the genocide in Gaza. Yes, I like that. Yeah, I like that. And also, as a former music journalist, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of weak musicians who aren't standing up to be counted for anything. So there you go. That's kind of like my position. And frankly, you can like it or lump it. That's kind of mood I'm in. How you doing out there? I hope you're all well. Right. What else do I want to talk about? I do want to talk about this insane story. Now, has anybody seen this? Let me clear my throat because I want to go into some detail about this. This is this mad story involving feuding YouTubers. Okay. So what happened was that a murder took place Sunday, just gone. And it was popular. No, it's not accurate to say popular YouTuber. That is an MSM expression. Here at the time of death, these were small accounts that got into a feud. And it was Finney the Legend and his wife Bubbly. And Finney's account only had about 3,000 followers. So these are small accounts by YouTube standards. And he was shot down in Las Vegas, on the Las Vegas Strip, by Manuel Ruiz, who is known as Sin City Manny Wise. He dressed up like a clown. Let me bring in some imagery of these people so you know what I'm talking about, because I believe that this is going to be used to crack down even more on the internet. And I want to make people aware of it, because I was looking in mainstream media and it's not being covered in the UK. So I'm going to cover it. Beck got a notification. I don't care what you say. Right. And I'm going to get on with this story. That's what I'm going to do. There you go. And yeah. Right. So let me focus on this story, and let me bring in some imagery. And right, image file. There we go. Let me see. I think this is so we're going to start off with Finney and his wife Bubbly, right? And YouTubers, they are both dead. These two people on the screen are now dead, and they were shot on a live stream, on their YouTube live stream, by Manny. Manny, another YouTuber, and it's a beef that has been going on since about 2023. And it's one of those things that started accidentally, as these things often do. And what happened was Bubbly and Finney were in Las Vegas and they were filming, and Manny Wise was there also filming, and Bubbly was filming all around her, and that also included filming Manny Wise, and he took offense to it and he kind of pushed her away, which is ironic for somebody who makes their living, or at least attempts to, by filming other people without their permission. Anyway, he pushed her away with a camera, and I've seen the footage, pushed her away with the camera, and the next thing that happened was it all just kind of kicked off, and that started the feud. And that feud has been running online since 2023. And it literally turned into a tragedy this weekend. And it's fairly awful, egregious stuff. And I'm absolutely certain, I'm not going to show you the footage from Las Vegas, even though it is available online. You can find it online. I'm not going to show it. It's horrible stuff. It's really horrible stuff to see somebody in the last minutes of their life. That is fairly appalling. But let me bring in some more imagery to make some sense of this, because as I say, my concern is, and I think what is actually going to happen, is that this story will be used to further censor online. And that concerns me. So let me just bring in. So they were live streaming. There they were. You can actually see in the corner here is Finney, and he's just checking that his camera is okay. And they were live streaming in front of the Bellagio, which is like quite an iconic hotel along the Las Vegas Strip. And then the next thing that happens is Manny walks past them, and he acts as if he didn't recognize them. And then he comes back, and on the live stream, he shoots Finney. This is Manny in court yesterday. And his name is Manuel Ruiz. And he has now been charged with the double homicide that occurred on Sunday. And it is an absolute mad story. The whole thing is so devastatingly shocking. All of them leave behind children. And I've seen these kind of feuds happen before, which is why I don't allow myself to get drawn into them, because feuds happen so easily online, and they're really not worth it. They're absolutely not worth it. And there was a lot of provocation from both sides that eventually ended in this. And let me just be clear here. Even though I have seen tremendous provocation from both sides, including from Finney and Bubbly, there is no justification whatsoever for murder. None whatsoever. And I'm not about to start trying to justify it. But it was really interesting. YouTube have obviously removed that live stream with the live shooting. Thank goodness. The last video that is available on Finney's account is actually just taken earlier that day on the trip. And it's awful when you realize how quickly life can just leave us over something like this. And I would just say, if anybody is having a beef online, walk away, because what ends up happening, and I have literally witnessed this before, where people, their ego is so great that they can't bear being put down in front of their supporters or their followers. And none of these accounts were huge. None of them were huge. They were, like I think Manny had like 8,000. So these were not huge YouTube accounts. But what was happening was they went backwards and forwards with these copyright strikes. And that was also problematic. And they created this incredible animosity between them. And then the couple went to Las Vegas last weekend. And some people said, why did they go there? They knew that was his territory. Well, what the hell? Are you trying to tell me that because somebody on YouTube says this is my territory, you can't go and visit that place? That's insane. That's absolutely insane. Again, there is no provocation which is enough to warrant murdering somebody. But the Attorney General, who is prosecuting, not the Attorney General, the DA, the District Attorney, who is prosecuting Manny, came out. Let me just show you. And what he had to say yesterday, I think, is insightful, because the thing is, nobody can deny what has taken place. It's all on camera. It's like all on camera. This is the DA, the District Attorney. DA Steve Wolfson, he was speaking to the media after Ruiz's court appearance yesterday, and he said that Ruiz has been charged with 2 murders. Ruiz has said that it was self-defense. And this DA described that as garbage. He said that there were no vehicles on, no weapons on either Finney or Bubbly. He said that they are now looking into the motivation. He said it was apparent that the individuals knew each other and had an ongoing feud. And he's also said that we are looking at everything that led to Mr. Ruiz doing that. There are issues potentially of the defense already being involved in misdemeanor battery only a few weeks ago. Social media obviously has contributed a lot to this, where there have been followers egging these people on. And as the DA said, a lot of times now we're living in a world where social media is providing us with the evidence of these crimes. And in fact, he described it as a new world. And that worried me, because when we start to talk about a new world and situations like this, the internet is already censored enough. It absolutely is. If you want to protect your children, don't allow them on it, right? The internet is already censored enough, and it certainly doesn't need any more. Children do need protection, and children shouldn't be allowed on certain sites, and certain sites absolutely should not exist, right? There is a horrible stuff on the internet. But in terms of freedom of speech and what people are saying, we have to be very, very wary, because they always use situations like this. And this situation goes way back. It goes way back, and people need to realize that. And of course, the alleged murderer has not been given any bail. Although he has pled not guilty, and he has said, as I say, that he shot in self-defense, and he's been given 3 weeks by the judge to get his own representation. He said he's going to talk to his family about private representation, and if not, then it will be state appointed. And good luck with that, right? Frankly, good luck with that. So really sad. Oh, and also the suspect turned himself in as well. Manny turned himself in. And it's really sad, because last weekend, all of these adults, the children of all these adults had parents. And this weekend, 2 of the parents are no longer with us, leaving bereaved and grieving children behind. And this man's children have also lost a father. They've also lost a father. So I think it's really sad. I think it's quite damning stuff, frankly. Do you know what, Kenneth? That was really interesting. You said that, right? Snuff movies on YouTube. My first thought when I saw it was, oh my God, they're actually like normalizing this stuff now. Normalizing this stuff. And it's awful. Really is crazy. Didn't he realize they were streaming? Marco, the thing is, I don't think he cared, because there's a video of him earlier in the day where he's now driving around Las Vegas saying, I hear that my greatest fans are here. And he said, something about, this to die for. And he just got it completely in his head that this is what he was going to do. And when you watch the clip, it's very eerie, because what you have is the couple, they're streaming. They have no weapons on them, right? According to police, no weapons on them at all. They're streaming, but they know they're in the territory of a man that they're beefing with. But they're streaming, and I'm not blaming them for that. Again, going back to the thing, nobody owns territory. So they're streaming, and what you do is you see this man, you see him walk past them, and if you didn't know who he was, you just think he was just a regular punter who's just walking past them as they're streaming. And he walks past, and then he comes back. And then that's when it all happens. And it's just awful to watch it. And it really can. Absolutely. In a tuition week, egos everywhere. And Reba, I have to agree. I think that people do lose it too easily these days. And I think that the internet in its own way has been geared up to that. And as I say, I've seen this before where people have been beefing on YouTube, and it's absolutely dumb. It's absolutely dumb. Do you think it's getting worse, Natasha? Do you think it's getting worse? The thing is, they will use it, won't they, to clamp down on our freedom. So this is, I think, a very interesting story, and I think it will develop. And I think it's also curious why it's not being talked about more in the UK right now. Protect your privacy and privacy. And the thing is, why go online and beef like that? Why? Absolutely ridiculous. Right. What do I want to talk about? I want to talk about the 71st Bilderberg meeting. started yesterday and will finish on the 15th, which is Sunday. Have you seen some of the people who are there and some of the topics that they're discussing? It's in Stockholm, and it's very interesting people. So they are discussing transatlantic relationships, Ukraine, US economy, Europe, Middle East, authoritarian axis, defense, innovation and resilience, AI, deterrence and national security, proliferation, geopolitics of energy and critical minerals. And I think the one that's garnering some attention is depopulation and migration. And the thing is, when you start to see who's on the guest list, now bear in mind, the people who go there, they adhere to what's known as Chatham House rules. That is what the event is held under. And basically what it means that participants are free to use the information they garner there, but they can't say who said it or the identity of the people involved. Now, the thing is that the people involved are often representatives from government. So, for example, our health secretary, Wes Streeting, is there. And they say the idea is that these people are there in a private capacity. What a load of balls. That is absolute nonsense. How is it possible that our health secretary is there in a private capacity and it doesn't overlap into his work? We should know about what takes place. Shouldn't be under Chatham House rules. I need some water. Let me tell you some of the people who were there. Okay, so we've talked a lot about some of these people. So, for example, there's Richard Moore, who is head of MI6, UK's secret service. He's the chief of intelligence. How is that in a personal capacity that he's there? That's one. Wes Streeting is another. Peter Thiel is there. Obviously, we hear a lot about him in terms of to do with Palantir. And if you think that he's the only person there from Palantir, you've got another thing coming, right? Because Alex Karp, who is the CEO of Palantir, is also there. There's a whole load of journalists there. So, for example, staff writer at The Atlantic, Anne Applebaum is there. There's also Jeremy Hunt, Member of Parliament. He's there, British Parliament. There's like the editor-in-chief from Bloomsburg. And all these people are supposed to be there in a private capacity. This is an absolute lie. None of it makes absolutely any sense at all. George said it's the evil establishment. So that's what's taking place. We'll find out hardly anything about it. But the Bilderberg meeting was founded in 1954. This is the 71st Bilderberg meeting. And honestly, the reality is they are shaping society at these private and secretive meetings. That is a reality. They are shaping society, and we should know about it. We should know about it. All the same delightful people as always. Yes, a topic for Bilderberg this week is depopulation, Jack. And it's interesting that they've actually linked it in with depopulation and migration. How interesting is that? So they are obviously creating a situation where we have mass uncontrolled migration into Western countries. And at the same time, we are hearing that the indigenous population of these Western countries are having less children. So it's very interesting. And it, obviously, a lot of people are like, there's no way that these people, that depopulation is a thing. Of course it's a thing. You simply don't know history if you don't know how many people are interested in depopulation, whether that's former British prime ministers or the people who attend Bilderberg. Reality. Right. What do I want? What do I want to move on? I want to move on. And that is just to say, again, I really want to do some good, decent coverage about what has been exposed in Ireland. We know that it was to do with Lord Mountbatten. We talked about it often. I've interviewed Andrew Loney. I've interviewed Richard Kerr. I've interviewed Colin Wallace, all people who understood what was taking place at Kincora and to do with Lord Mountbatten, right? Lord Mountbatten famously killed by the IRA, and many people have said that he was absolutely involved with an MI5 linked paedophile ring involving children, and that's also what contributed to his downfall. We know certainly that he was a predator, that he was a pervert, because that's revealed in official files. But so there is this new book out, and I was sent it by Neve. Thank you, Neve, not the book but the story, and I really want to get it covered, but I want to cover it in some depth. And but at the moment, Colin Wallace can't talk to us because he's actually suing the Ministry of Defence over the way in which the ministry handled his role in Northern Ireland. Richard I've talked to before, and Richard has, you know, some issues, and because of what happened to him at Kincora. Richard quite famously was abused at Kincora. And but I want to bring in people to actually discuss this again in light of the new revelations, because when I saw the headline on the front page of the Irish News, it said Royal murdered by IRA, abused children, trafficked to his estate. And as I say, this is a story we've covered repeatedly for many years, but the fact that it's now out there in the public domain is something that we need to tackle. I will not be running for government. Whoever suggested that in the comments. Right. What else do I want to talk about? What else do I want to talk about? People, right? People, we are closing in on 100,000 subs on YouTube. Are you subscribed? Catcher's Catch said, I hit the 600 mark. And that was me saying the other day, we're only 625 away from 100,000. And Catcher's Catch hit the 600 mark. Thank you very much. And I appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, Richard Kerr is an awesome human. Is everything going all right there, people? Is everything going all right there? Right. Will you be doing any more chasing wrong uns down the street? Marco wants to know. Absolutely. My doorstepping days are far from over because I get too much fun and enjoyment out of chasing wrong uns. I don't see, the thing about Wake Up is about giving people a voice, about a platform, right? It's not about attacking people who come on. But when I get out there in the street, I'm after them. And I want to know what's going on. And don't forget to ring that bell. CJ, exactly. Helps me. Well, Brenda, I can't do that, unfortunately. Brenda, I take your point. Can you put the topic of discussions in the title of the video? There isn't space, but what it says is times and topics below. So if you're looking at the end of the stream, I do all the times and topics under discussion, so people can literally just go to them, because there simply isn't space in the title, right? But I take your point. That is because that's a grabbing point for many people. But I'm working on the basis around here that what we're doing is of quality enough that people should look down in the description, look at the headlines, because you won't see it there. It's not there yet. It's not until the end of the show when I sit down and do it. And I base it on the idea of a newspaper. And so they're like headlines which give you a rough idea of the topic under discussion and the time it comes on during the podcast. Yes, Natasha, I'm looking forward to the summer solstice. Will you be in London? I hope so. Stay safe. Absolutely. Right. I want to talk at the end of our show today of, remember that old expression where they used to tell us a photograph never lies? Do you remember that? That seems like forever ago, right? Oh, what lovely, naive times they were. And I kind of miss them, right? We have entered a whole new level of lies and deceit. We're able to spread lies in the millions and across the world in seconds. And when I say we, I mean that generally. I certainly don't mean me. Our leading social medias are owned by propagandists who have rigged their systems to amplify the message they wish to broadcast, and they downplay the truth. And what you have is AI and chat GPT. They've created a world where anything is visually possible, right? Legacy media has created a world where lies are told in lockstep for a price, and often for just like a gentleman's agreement at a men's only club in Westminster. That is often how some of these things go down. So I thought people need to not so readily embrace what they are told, whether it's about some madman ramming into people or about a new government initiative. We live in a time of great lies and bigger liars. So I thought I would end today's show on a note of caution. We live in this time where disbelief is a healthy response to much of what we're being fed. Disbelief. Yeah. I think what has happened largely is people have worked on the basis that if it's in newspapers or if it's online, then it must be the truth. And they just run with it, right? And I'm not talking about living in a state of perpetual paranoia, not that. Because when we automatically assume that everything in the news is a psyop or people are controlled opposition, I think we end up actually batting for the people who are working against us. We have to be able to be more discerning than that. So I'm not suggesting, no, what I am suggesting is that the next time you hear a story of national or international significance, I highly recommend you start from a place of disbelief and work backwards. Right? Force the story to prove itself to you rather than embrace it with open arms. I know it's hard in our fast news world, but it will be beneficial. And there are many benefits actually from starting from a place of disbelief. And here's some of them. You will get to scrutinize the claims that are being made. Okay. The thing about disbelief is it prompts us to question claims and evidence. So if somebody says, yeah, somebody just drove in to people in a German market, don't automatically run with, oh my God, that must be a Muslim doing that, because that's what's happening. That is what's happening online. And I know the culprits who are doing it. Oh, absolutely. Now, they, I believe, probably are controlled opposition. Or as I say, a lot of these so-called British patriots are not British at all, not English, and they're operating from places like, you know, India and the Philippines, for one example, and getting paid muchly to create division in our country. So that's the first thing you'll do, is you'll get to scrutinize properly the claims. You will also challenge your own assumptions. What happens a lot of the time, and I've been as guilty as anybody else of this. I'm not saying anything here that I've not had to go through myself. But the thing is that what often happens is people just get their biases confirmed. Like when people want to believe that, you know, I'll go back to Muslims again, because it's just the most obvious one that we're operating with at the moment. When people want to believe that every Muslim is a terrorist, they will find their evidence to support that, right? And also what will happen is when you start from a place of disbelief, you'll be able to refine your understanding of the situation. You will gain a much better overview of the situation. So when I have people who come into the comments who don't really necessarily know stories, but they've gone on headlines and then they want to try and challenge me about that, the reason that I can stand so firm is because I've looked into the story, right? And they are operating from mainstream media headlines. That is often the case, right? And also, I think unbelief is a really good place to start from, because going back to what Jane was saying earlier, and that is a lot of the lessons we learn are made through mistakes. Well, unbelief is a really good way of actually growing, because if you can start from a place of disbelief, unbelief, however you want to see it, and gradually you start to prove what it is that you've been told, that will grow you. That will grow you as a person. That will grow your critical faculties and all of those things. And, you know, the problem is what's happening in our world with all the corruption and the lies that we're facing. A lot of it is dogmatic. We are told to think how we should think. And that is not what I'm doing. I'm not up for that at all. I'm really not. And it really is about being more critical. I think that's really important, that we need to be more critical in what we are receiving. Otherwise, we become willing tools and pawns in the madness. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that at all. I want to be part of this world without losing myself to it. And I think that's fair enough, right? Bob, I will say literally as much as I want to. The thing is, when people say, please stop saying that, please stop saying that, just look, the more you draw attention to something you don't like about me, the more you will see it, right? So it's absolutely ridiculous how people want to try and box you in. Stop trying to box me in. You will never be able to do it with me. I'm unboxable, right? I'm unboxable. Yes, I am. Priscilla says, what are we talking about? Italians? I don't know. Anyway, and ultimately, when you are able to start from a place of disbelief, it will have such a tremendous impact on your psychology, because not only will you be able to remove the filters that have been placed on you by other people, but you'll be able to see the story in all of its kind of like raw glory. Okay, that will absolutely improve your psychology, because it is better to be dealing with the facts and the truth than what headline writers at the Sun or the Daily Mail have told you to believe, or indeed people on social media, right? Right. So absolutely. I am, Ray J, I am literally unboxable. Right. I'm a lioness. Absolutely, I am. Right. Listen, I want to thank you all for being here today. And as ever, Feel free to disagree with me. I kind of like it, to be honest with you. I've always been that person where I believe that you need something to kick against. And so when people like question me in the comments, it gives me something to like fight against. I enjoy it. I kind of enjoy it. So all good, Bob. No disrespect to you. No disrespect at all. And thank you, Dougal. Have a wonderful weekend yourself. Thank you all for being here. I truly appreciate it. You people are stars. You do know that, right? I want to end on a quote because that's what we do around here. And that it is not disbelief that is dangerous to our society, but belief. And George Bernard Shaw said that a long, long time ago. And I agree. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you all of you wonderful people. And thank you for being here. Thank you to our wonderful patrons. I absolutely, truly, 100% appreciate you so, so much. To my patrons at Patreon, to the donators who make this possible. I'm still sending out behind the scenes to anybody who's donated. And if you've donated in the chat, I don't know where I can get your email address because I'd love to send you a link to the behind the scenes video. So please feel free to write to me at soniapoulton@sky.com. You're welcome, Andrew. Absolutely welcome. And Vendetta, I received your email and I want to briefly refer to that on Monday to do with swans and a comment that I made on Wednesday. Thank you all. You are beautiful people. You absolutely are. I hope you're having a wonderful birthday week. Thank you all. And I will see you on Monday as per. Don't mind me. I'm just Sonia P. Take good care of yourself. See you Monday, everybody.